Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Journey with Julie. I'm your host, Julie Long, and today I'm sitting with Sue Berard. And Sue Berard is an intuitive wellness consultant based in BC, Canada. And she used to be an executive sales director, but tapped into her own intuition and followed it to her true life calling, which is helping others like you harness and follow and believe your own intuitive capacity, which she's been doing since 2011 here in BC, Canada, and internationally. So welcome, Sue.
Oh, thank you, Julie. I was really looking forward to sharing today.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm really excited because one of the things that we'll talk about is how you tell the difference between your intuition and your fear or your ego, right? Which I think comes up a lot in therapy with people that I'm supporting. But it sounds like in our previous call before we started recording, you mentioned that a lot of times when you're working with clients and you offer your perspective, they say like, oh my God, that is what I was thinking and feeling like that was, and then you're kind of validating their intuition. So it ends up where you're supporting them to follow that, right?
Absolutely. And I really do love it when that happens because it builds that person's confidence to know that truly their inner voice was right all along. Because, a lot of times we're going to talk about this, but a lot of times that fear really prevents us choosing that knowing. And unfortunately, kind of brings us on a path that creates many more lessons than we need to have, Yes. So that's why I love it when that happens. I encourage, people to really listen to that. And I'm excited to kind of share today how a person can do that because, there are so many benefits to really being connected to your higher self and how that plays out.
So I'm sure that a lot of people who are listening may relate to being in a place in their life where they have that intuitive knowing that this isn't where I should be. This isn't where I want to be. I need to be somewhere else. So if you're okay with it, people love stories. So how did you go from executive sales director to intuitive wellness consultant?
It's exactly how that happened to me when you said that people have a feeling that they're not in the right place and they're seeking their life purpose. That's another big question that people ask when they come for readings with me. Well, I was in the same boat. I actually was, I have a very corporate background. I worked in travel in the airline industry. And I just wasn't completely happy. Certainly loved working in travel, but something was missing. So I kept seeking and I had an opportunity to work in the financial world and became a financial advisor, an executive sales director for a national company. And I was expanding for the province of Manitoba and certainly nose down, working hard, training, building, all that kind of thing. But it just came to a point that it was just a calling I couldn't ignore anymore. I just was, in my work, I was burning out. And I just kept feeling this voice, this inner knowing that, there's got to be something better. There's got to be something more. And all along, I knew I was intuitive. I may not have understood in the beginning, how did I know all these things? But as I continued in my financial career, I started realizing that this voice was getting almost louder and louder. And I started to realize that, there's something here. I really need to pursue this. So a catalyst to kind of push me off the fence or to push me in the direction, because again, for me too, there was fear at that time. How do I leave an established career in the financial world
where you're successful?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, all these people to be responsible for, all these people training, all these people to answer for. It was almost a 7-day-a-week commitment to then all of a sudden say, no, you know what? I've got to listen to this calling and I need to be able to serve others. I'll tell you what that catalyst was. We have a nephew who passed suddenly at a very young age. And with that passing came the opportunity for me to introduce to my brother and sister-in-law a friend of mine who was a medium. And because of the years that I had, brought others to see her, I could see the comfort she gave others. I also explored my intuition a bit with her help. And then I brought my brother-in-law and sister-in-law to see her to help them with their grief, because they just lost their only child. And what she did for them was nothing short of a game changer for them, to be able to connect to their son who had passed. And it actually really collapsed their time frames in, helping them heal with their grief, finding other ways to connect, other ways to find peace, other ways to help them. And when I saw that, I realized, like that voice, I couldn't ignore it anymore. When I saw the help that it gave them, it gave me that push that I needed. This is what I need to do, because I knew that I had this intuition. I wasn't quite sure at the time yet how I was supposed to develop it, but I just knew that I had to do that. So in conjunction with that, I made the decision that I really had to pursue this. So I did. I basically, took that position that I had, and I left that position, and I left it in capable hands. I started to take some time to really explore my intuition, first of all, through Reiki, because I was being guided that would be a gateway for me. So Reiki, for those who don't know, is a very wonderful healing modality. It's hands-on energy transfer from the practitioner to the person that is seeking help, for whether it's, to have a higher level of peace or as a complement to other healing modalities, etc. So the moment I followed that intuition, I followed that voice, and I did start my Reiki training, and my intuition was exactly correct. I had at least had the courage to follow that at the time, because I was still unsure. And I started to, when I was in training in a workshop with people I didn't even know, I started receiving messages that when we had a time to share in class, I found the courage to share, because of course there's fear, right? I don't want to be judged.
Oh, so much fear.
Yes. So I did. I found the courage. I felt like it was a safe place for me to share. And for these strangers, they were able to validate for me that, oh my God, yes, that's exactly true. That, that's exactly correct. So that gave me the courage to know that there indeed was something here, that I could trust that inner voice. So from there, it just basically, it was like a floodgate opened. I knew that built enough of my confidence to start seeking other ways. So from that moment, because I had success with trusting that inner voice, to know that this was my gateway to opening that up, I started looking for other courses. I did, through a series of synchronicities, find my perfect mentor, who's teaching how to develop your ability as a medium. So I took several courses. I continued to study. I'm always a student, and I always teach. And through that, I started, because of my background in business and marketing. I'm grateful for that, because I started my own business where I began, first of all, with Reiki. And because of my natural intuitive ability and being able to share messages, it kind of showed people that, I can do other things. So from there, I built my business from there through word of mouth referral, etc. So that's how I came to serving others with my abilities. And the most amazing thing happened. I didn't expect this to happen, but it was probably the biggest gift. For as much as I gave and served others and helped those healing from grief connect to loved ones who passed away, or, giving guidance for their future or making choices, I got back so much more of that gift. I didn't expect that. So by serving others, it enriched my life in so many ways. And I think we'll talk about that, like how it can benefit you. I'll share some of those things that it can benefit. So that is hopefully as much of a condensed version, I guess, I can give of how I found myself in this place.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because you know what? I think a lot of people would relate to that, where
I hope so.
There's this voice that's quiet at first, and then it starts to get louder and louder the longer you ignore it.
That's right. Yeah.
And then usually, because making change is really hard and scary. And
absolutely.
I find, and I'm sure with you've noticed too with others, where something big has to happen to wake you up that I can
Right.
no longer ignore what's happening. And usually it's something
Big.
that is upsetting and distressing, right?
Absolutely.
And then that's enough to make us check, like, life is short. I need to listen to myself. And when we do align to ourself, like you said, the floodgates open.
Yeah.
And what we thought was like totally impossible, like just dreamland, becomes reality, and then doesn't feel as hard as we thought it might be. And
Exactly.
Scary, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we really just listen, it's hard to just listen and follow that intuition. So if it's okay with you, I wonder if we might start with intuition itself. Like, that's the key word of this podcast. So how would we describe what that is for people who are listening and watching?
Well, it's and when I describe it, you might recognize it. So it's basically an immediate knowing or understanding of something without any kind of reasoning, without any kind of contemplation. It's just a knowing that you have. Like, you commonly hear people saying things like, "Oh, my gut instinct," or "I just knew I should have blank," or
Right.
"I just had a feeling about something." Right? Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Right. So that intangible kind of knowing that suddenly and unexpectedly like shows up for us, and it could show up in different ways. It could be a thought that's not your own forethought. It could be an image or a vision of something. Or I've had people say that they'll have a problem, they'll sleep on it, and maybe they wake up in the morning and they know what they need to do, or they've had a dream, or different things. It can come in different ways, and we'll certainly talk about those, I believe, today as well. But that's what that is. So if I can help anyone recognize what that looks like and what to do when it arrives, then you're on your way. And so also to build the courage to trust that as well, too.
I know. I can't tell you how many times something has happened. I had a voice that said to do something, but then that ego, that judgment, that thought, the thinking brain, like, stops it or overrides it. Yeah. And then what I knew would happen happens. And it's like, I knew it. Like, why didn't I listen to myself? Okay. Yeah. Lesson learned. So I think that would be really valuable to people to learn, like, how to listen. Right. So, let's talk about okay. So we know what it is. Like, how do we use it?
Well, I can certainly share with you the different ways and benefits of using your intuition in your life. Because also, I always tell even all of my clients who come to see me, I tell them, which is true, that they are just as gifted as I am. You all have the same clear senses, those senses that we'll go into a little bit more detail, but we all have the same intuition. We all have the same source. So if you tap into that, these are just kind of like some of the things that I can think of that would be helpful. I mean, you can have more loving and fulfilling relationships, more successful careers, right? If you're tapping in and really, really focusing on your guidance, peace of mind, of course, because you're making those better decisions for yourself. You can enjoy much more vibrant, good health. You could also bring more abundance into your life. You can also discover your true life purpose as well, so that because so many people, sometimes people go their entire life not really doing what they were meant to do, like what their contract was for here. So they could help you discover what your true life purpose is. And, also something as simple as less anger, less reactiveness, when you calm and quiet yourself to be able to connect and surrender and say, okay, spirit, higher self, whatever you want to call, and say, okay, I surrender. I need you to show me like a different way. How can I see this differently so that you don't have that reaction and follow that guidance?
Absolutely. Like, I think if at times where I've noticed that my voice said this, but my head said that, and I did what my head said. Yeah. I do get frustrated because I knew it and I wanted something different. And so I'm like betraying myself, and you can't blame anybody else, but not listening to yourself. Right. And so if you're living a life that is not aligned with what you truly want, it makes complete sense that you'd be frustrated and angry. right? So if you're listening, then things just align, and then you do feel content and happy and healthy and yes, abundant, in many ways, not just financial.
Oh, absolutely. And it feels like you're not going against the current anymore. Because what I found in my personal experience is when I really, especially at the beginning of developing my intuition to serve others, what I found was when I surrendered to it and like really put the fear behind me and, just said, okay, you need to lead me. If this is where you want me to go, you need to lead me. And once I surrendered, it was kind of like miraculous. All the right mentors showed up for me, all the right information, all the right books. I just have goosebumps talking about it because it was just incredible. It was just proof that if you listen, you're in that flow. It just changes the course of of that direction in a much more positive way.
Totally. Okay, so then let's talk about the clairsenses then, right? Okay. Like how do we notice?
Okay, so the important thing is, in fact, identifying how do I actually receive my messages, so that there's a certain amount of discernment here that you want to be able to recognize it. Because I always tell people, whether it's in my workshop for developing intuition or on one-on-one, I said, I always tell them you want to be able to understand how you're getting your message to build your confidence. And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. It's like a muscle, right? It's just like a muscle. So let's start with probably the most common thing that people heard is the term clairvoyant. Okay.
Right.
Certainly clairvoyance has been kind of a blanket term for anybody who's psychic, if you will, but there's a very specific meaning for clairvoyance. Generally, a clairvoyant person will receive their messages through images, visions, pictures, vivid dreams. So when they receive their messages, they very much see. Creative people, a lot of times, are clairvoyant as well too. So pay attention to that. What are you seeing? There is also claircognizance, which is clear knowing. Now, I consider myself to be predominantly claircognizant. I certainly have all of them, as everybody does. So you have them to different degrees, basically. So my strongest one is the claircognizance. So with that, it is, a thought that comes to you, words, thoughts, impressions that come to you without your own forethought. They just kind of pop into there. It's a knowing that
like
you
that
have.
Voice.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like that voice that you have.
My gut's telling me kind of thing.
Exactly. Right. The other one, it can also be clairaudience, hearing your messages like someone spoke to you. Imagine being in a room by yourself, and it's almost like you hear somebody calling your name and you almost have to turn around. That's clairaudience. You're hearing somebody. Okay, you're hearing your guidance. Another one could be clairalience, which is feeling things on your body. I'll give you a description. In my case, my clairalience works as goosebumps. Just covering my body. So when I'm in a reading with someone, usually when I repeat something from spirit that is absolutely correct, I'm usually covered in goosebumps. So over the years of doing this and over hundreds of sessions, that came up pretty clearly to begin with, and I recognized that. So even if I was doing a reading for you, for example, and you said something that was absolutely correct and in line, I would get covered in goosebumps. So pay attention to that. That's a pretty common one for a lot of people, or just like a feeling in your gut, like a feeling in your stomach. So paying attention to your body, what does that feel like? Some people get like a hot. Some of my clients have said they have heat in their hands. They feel heat in their hands. So it's very a physical sense. There is also clairalience, which is actually smell.
Actually, can I go back for a sec?
Sure.
Like when I was listening to you talk about I can't remember what the body one is.
Clairsentience.
So like increased heart rate.
Very physical. Yes.
Right. And then I think that's kind of where I get confused in the past, where like, is this anxiety and fear and my body telling me don't do it? Or is this anxiety and fear like, this is what I should be doing? Like that's the alignment, but you know what I mean?
I do. And that is all about discernment. Yeah, we'll certainly get into, but what I would tell a person when something like that happens is pause for a moment and actually ask your higher self. If you're unsure, because for somebody who receives their messages as a clairaudient, it can be very confusing.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, being a claircognizant, I'm so blessed because it's the easiest, right? Because it just comes to me. But if somebody is predominantly clairaudient, they have to be very aware of their environment and what's triggering the body response. So if you're unsure, whether that's my ego thought system, my anxiety, you have to ask. Don't presume to know until you ask your higher self, show me a different way, or what are you trying to show me? So just keep asking and seeing if you're getting other signs through either other clairsenses or that one again, right?
Right.
So that's what I would say. So what it causes you to do is be very present and very mindful, right?
Yes.
So it's an exercise in mindfulness as well, because you have to pay attention. You have to be in your body. You have to focus, right? Make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Great question. I'm glad you asked.
And then the smell, you were going to describe that one.
So there is also clairalience. So getting a message through this one, I have to tell you, it's not as common for, I think, for a lot of people. I certainly, when I was doing more so readings for connecting with loved ones who have passed away as a medium, all of a sudden I would get a smell that I would be able to share with the person I was doing a reading for. And they made a connection to their loved one to validate, whether it was, I can recall one specifically, I also smelled the smell of diesel. And it was, someone's grandfather who was in fact a mechanic and that's how they remembered him smelling all the time. Or, like bakings, like I could I'll smell something specific about, like a pie or something, and that whatever that was a connection to that person. Right. So that could be messages too. Or sometimes, I have a lot of people who say that they're in a room and all of a sudden they smell perfume and there's nobody there.
Yes.
So they'll go into a house that they've never been in before, and all of a sudden they'll smell perfume. So a lot of times I tell them, okay, well, perhaps there's some residual energy there.
Right.
And the last one is taste. Clairgustance. Okay. So again, I'm myself personally only in mediumship connecting to loved ones who have passed have I had that experience where I've had a taste in my mouth. I describe that. And again, it's something that connects to that loved one that they can relate to. But I wanted everybody to be aware because, that could be somebody's strongest ability. But again, we have them all. To varying degrees. The more you use them, the stronger they get. Okay, so pay attention and use them as often as you can.
Yeah, it's interesting when I hear that, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I remember one of the times I was pregnant, I could taste a metallic taste in my mouth, and I knew it even before I had the pregnancy test, and then just a knowing, just because this is different, and I don't know, it was just. Yeah, I don't know. But,
and you got a validation then obviously afterwards. Yeah. So your clairgustance kind of triggered your claircognizance as well, because once you received that, you see, so there knew. You just knew. So they all do work together. And I certainly in my readings, they all come in different ways for me as well too. Yeah, and cool. I just kind of harness them all just like everybody should.
Yeah. And with more practice and the confidence. And I think I like how you shared where I can't remember where you were, and you had the thought to share what was coming to you, and they validated it.
Yeah, my very first level 1 Reiki, where we were practicing on other workshop participants, and I was just receiving messages, and I shared to build, to find the courage. And then as soon as you get a validation, it's like, okay, there is something here. Oh my gosh, that felt so good. Give me the courage to keep going.
The more times that it's confirmed, the more confident you become in it. And thus the more that you listen and the stronger that it becomes. Yes.
Right? Because you tend to quiet your ego thought system that is telling you, oh, that's nothing. You're going to be laughed at or if you say this or, like all those, that voice, that ego thought system, that kind of wants to keep you unaware of your higher self. You bet. Your inner critic.
Okay. So then one of the things that I wanted to touch on, which we just basically went into, was how you decipher the two, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that discernment is very important. So, because a lot of time people, like you said earlier, Was that me? Was that my anxiety? So this is when people ask me this, I generally talk to them about the difference between your ego thought system and your higher self. Okay. So the ego thought system is the part of you that is very fear-based. Okay. Anything that keeps you angry, frustrated, confused, anything that kind of disturbs your inner peace is fear-based, is your ego thought system, and you're not your ego. Who you are is a divine connected being who just perhaps has their filter clogged through the ego thought system, and we just need to clean that filter. Okay, so to do that then, again, by you working with your intuition, your clairsenses, it is a great filter cleaner, okay? Because that intuition will come through stronger. It's there. It's just been clogged by that. So discernment, when you receive messages from spirit that are your guidance, your higher self who has the, I always tell people that when you're following your guidance, your guides, they have your best interest at heart. Your spiritual team has your best interest. So that usually the messages that come through to you create a sense of peace, a sense of understanding, a sense of calm. Certainly you might be guided to do something that is outside your comfort zone, but it's almost like you connect to know, like, okay, that makes sense. That resonates with me. When you receive a message from your ego thought system, it is going to create frustration, anxiety. It will be uncomfortable. It's just not anything that moves you in a positive direction. So there's definitely a difference between the two. And like you mentioned before, when you are a little bit unsure, when you're having a bit of heart racing and thinking, is this my anxiety? Pause for a moment. If you need more clarity, it's okay to ask your higher self, that's unclear. Show me a different way. Help me understand. And just keep asking until, you feel a little bit more calm. Okay.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, what's beneficial is, like when I do yoga, it connects me with myself. Perfect. Some people, when they go to exercise, or they go outside in nature, or they cook because that's their jam, or they have a bath or a shower or a nap, or they snuggle with their animal, or they play with their kids, like whatever brings them joy and increases their energy, aligns them with themselves. And then you can ask that question, that clarifying question, like, what are you trying to tell me? What am I supposed to hear right now? And then it comes through in a grounded space when you're aligned with yourself. And then that's the authentic answer. Versus when we're like, right? Exactly. And we ask that question, it may be hard to discern anxiety versus higher self, ego versus higher self. So I love that question when we're connected.
Yes. And, there are certain tools that a person new to working with their intuition that they can actually use to like be a bridge to help you practice, build your confidence. If you don't mind, I'll share that now, if that's okay. Some of the tools that I recommend for a beginner, if you will, or someone who wants to just kind of have that push to know, maybe there is something here. What I can certainly say that when right at the beginning, like over a decade ago, when I really started working with my intuition, I had certainly a few mentors in my life that were fantastic. They introduced things to me like, which I'd never heard of. Spiritual numbers, angel numbers. I'm sure, you're all of a sudden you're seeing repeating ones or repeating fours, or, you just see that same number over and over again. Well, one of my mentors introduced that idea to me and suggested a book that was, Angel Numbers 101, for example. So I kept this little pocketbook, and to this day, I still have it in my purse with me. And I started to pay more attention, because before I would just shrug that off. It's like, how come I keep looking at the clock and it's like the same time? Well, now when I noticed that, I realized, oh, there could be a message here for me. So I really need to take a look. So I'll open my book and I'll kind of get a sense of, what my spiritual team is trying to say. I also, found that by using spiritual numbers, I'll give you one quick example. I remember I was at the tail end, kind of at that point of my career in the financial industry. And I was driving to work one day and my mind was so busy with the day, all my thoughts, like it's kind of a situation where you sometimes get in your car and you drive from point A to point B and you're thinking, how did I get here? Because you're on autopilot, because my mind was so busy. So the questions that I was kind of like having in my mind, all of a sudden I was noticing as I'm driving, I was drawn to a license plate number. It's like, why am I looking at this license plate number all of a sudden? It's drawn my attention. I was so focused. Well, when I got to work, I actually opened up my book and I thought, I wonder if there's a message. I was gobsmacked. I was shocked. It was an exact answer to the questions that were going through my mind. And I felt so heard. I felt so listened to. I felt like, okay, there is somebody, listening to my voice, listening and answering me. So that was a great start for me. And it actually opened up my connection. So I kept using that. I also at some point started using angel cards because I would be able to just ask questions, and through my angel cards also get answers. So it's something that I now teach as a great tool for people to use that as their connection. Over time, I think what happens with a lot of people, if they really use this consistently, they will be able to maybe not even use these divination tools as I call them, but it's a great way to kind of get that flow started if you don't know where to start. Okay.
Yeah.
And one last thing I always tell people when they're working on their intuition is try to stop making choices. Imagine if, for the hundreds of choices you make in a day, for as often as you can, you actually stop and you say, instead of you choosing based on, what you've done in the past, what if you start by saying, okay, Spirit, what would you have me do here? What would you have me say? What direction should I go? And then see what happens. This is you using that muscle. Right. So as often as you can. I know it's simple. It's not easy because it takes practice, but that too actually can be very helpful.
Well, and it's interesting. So we started to record this at 11:30, and at 10:10 this morning, I looked at the clock and 10:10. Yeah. So Luella Sinha was a practitioner at Safe Harbor Therapy Center here in Winnipeg. And she did reflexology, but she also did an energy healing practice. And I can't for the life of me remember what it is right now. But so she shared angel numbers with me.
Oh, good.
And I used Google and a website called Willow Soul. And they kind of describe what those angel numbers mean. So I created affirmations based on the angel numbers. So 1010, anytime that I've seen a number, I've taken the theme of what it is and converted it into an I statement, and it's in my phone. So when I see it, this morning, 1010, I'm going to read it out.
Okay, cool.
Everything is working out for my highest good. I am awakening to my spiritual self. I am ready to take action. I am fully supported. And so even if it's not thinking that it's a divination tool or angel numbers, those are positive statements of myself that all of us can benefit from.
Absolutely.
And so if just like you said, when we're in the rat race and, we're just zooming along in life, when something like that happens and I look to my phone, it's a check. It's a refresh button for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I find them quite powerful. And the more that I notice, the more that when I created that notes page in my phone and I keep looking at it, the more I see the numbers, right? The more I read these statements, the better I feel.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic because, what I tell people is your perception becomes your reality. And so if you are having negative mind thoughts all the time, that you kind of, that becomes your reality. But if you have these things happening, it's like a switch. And if you start to focus on that those affirmations, or the fact that, wow, you know what, there I am being guided, I am being looked after. Again, there's that peace happening, that calm, that, that mindfulness. So yeah, totally. I agree. It's so comforting. Isn't it comforting to read that?
It is,
It's just like
especially when I see 1111, because I think it's like a deceased one is sending you a message, and I equate that with my brother, so if I'm doubting my intuition and I hear, and I see those numbers and then I read that affirmation, it helps me feel better.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm so grateful for that. And those little things just help us through the day. They're little things, but they have a huge impact in your every interaction, really.
Yeah. And I think most people know that when you have a positive lens, the day goes better. When you have a negative lens and like you stub your toe in the morning, like the more negative, it's like a snowball effect.
Absolutely.
So if we can have a snowball effect from positive,
right?
I would much prefer that.
I pick it too, yeah, because it's just so much lighter, where the other one is so heavy.
It is.
This one is much lighter. Yeah, it's a better way to be present in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for today.
It was my pleasure. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share, because I'd like to be able to, have other people really tap in and, make a change for their life too.
Right. So if people who are listening or watching feel called to reach out to that voice or that image, or I feel like maybe they got goosebumps at some times or whatever, saw something, feel free to reach out to you to perhaps work on one-on-one intuition. Do you still do Reiki?
I do. Yes, I do Reiki. And I do readings for personal choice. The thing that I'm not personal choice, but for those who are looking for guidance for their life in any way possible. And the only thing that I'm not taking new clients for, though, is the mediumship part, where I'm connecting to loved ones who passed away. That I just had to take a pause from, because I was physically exhausted from doing that work. But I am still doing the other things as well.
And then the intuitive workshop, like you mentioned, right?
Yes. Currently, I don't have one scheduled, just because of, COVID and everything else. I wasn't doing that in person. So it might come again in the future. But at this moment, I am doing more one-on-one teaching when it comes to intuition, teaching people how to read angel cards, different things I kind of take from my workshop, and I do it one-on-one in this type of format.
And your website is divineconnection.ca, so that people can just visiting that website, they'll see all these answers.
They can, they'll see my background. They can connect to me through my website, see testimonials of my beloved clients who have had a positive experience. And I'd love to be able to help others. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Still serving and very proud of it. So, and thank you for serving others with your podcast too.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care, Sue.
Take care. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Journey with Julie. If you have a question, topic, or story that you'd love to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please visit my website and leave me a note. And I'll see you next Tuesday, where we'll hear more about how to shift your life from surviving to thriving.